Our opening thought today comes from Florence Kennedy, from her writing Institutionalized Oppression versus the Female. You've got to rattle your cage door. You've got to let them know that you're in there and that you want out. Make noise, cause trouble. You may not win right away, but you'll sure have a lot more fun. Our next reading is from James Baldwin, from the autobiographical sketch and Notes of a Native Son. Baldwin writes, "I love America more than any other country in the world, and exactly for this reason I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. I think all theories are suspect, that the finest principles may have to be modified or may even be pulverized by the demands of life, and that one must find, therefore, one's own moral center and move through the world hoping that this center will guide one all right." Our next reading is by John Stuart Mill from his work on liberty. Government silencing of speech is as noxious or more noxious when exerted in accordance with public opinion than when in opposition to it. If all humankind minus one were of one opinion, and only one person were of the contrary opinion, humankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than they, if they had had the power, would be justified in silencing humankind. The ability to express ourselves freely, in ways that do no harm to others, and to peacefully assemble in protest of injustices. These are critical to the well-being and the flourishing of any human community. These are core rights that we have celebrated, that we have agreed upon as a society, and that up until now we have protected, especially more recently as a society. The philosopher John Stuart Mill, whom I just read, made the case that even when we think a dissenting view is wrong, it is still important that persons have the freedom to express that view, as long as they are not harming others. We are all fallible. We're human beings. It's the nature of being a human being, to be fallible. And it is important for dissenting voices to be heard as a way of challenging us to think critically about our own views. How many times have there been ideas expressed in the past that were viewed as wrong at the time? Quite a few. But now, many of those views are seen as both correct and helpful for the happiness and well-being of persons in the human community. What was seen as wrong by almost everybody in the past sometimes is seen as being right by almost everyone in the present. In fact, every bit of progress in human history was made possible by persons who were courageous enough to speak out against the prevailing norms of their time and place. Even if the dissenting view is not accepted immediately, it can become a seed for progress at a later date, a seed for progress in the future. We see this in the history of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. There are a number of examples in the history of the Supreme Court where the dissenting opinions have been some of the very best opinions expressed by the justices on the court. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is most famous for her dissenting opinions in recent times, and I hope that there may be a day in the future when many of her dissenting opinions will become the prevailing opinion of the Supreme Court of the United States. Another famous dissenter on the Supreme Court was one that maybe we haven't heard of as much because it's further in the past, and that is Associate Justice Louis D. Brandeis, whose dissenting opinions during his tenure on the court from 1916 to 1939 remind us how long these justices can be on the court, and it can be a lifetime. His dissenting opinions became the basis for future opinions that upheld the right of freedom of speech and the right of privacy. He made an argument all the way back in 1890 that we have the right to be left alone. And his dissenting opinions on freedom of speech and the right of privacy became the seeds for future progress, and also the protection of these core human rights. Core human rights that tragically have come under systematic and violent assault during the past 2.5 months. Systematic and violent assault as people are being abducted, detained, deported, and sometimes simply disappeared, though we know where they're being disappeared to for the most part, a concentration camp in El Salvador, without due process. And some of the persons being abducted, detained, and deported are being so simply because they have expressed political opinions and opinions about human rights that are dissenting from the current presidential administration. These assaults on the right to free speech, the right to freedom of assembly, the right to privacy, represent what we will view as one of the darkest chapters in American history, if our democracy survives to write that history. And if unchecked, it could very well lead to the death of our democracy and the freedoms that our democracy is meant to protect. Autocrats of the past, autocrats of the present, cannot tolerate dissent. This is not because they are strong. This is because they are weak. Fascists are emboldened more by the silence of those who know they are evil but say and do nothing than they are by the praise of their supporters. As Martin Luther King Jr. so powerfully reminds us, one who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as one who helps to perpetuate it. One who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it, King says. He goes further to state, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And as Elie Wiesel, the Nobel Peace Laureate who was a survivor of the Holocaust, reminds us, neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Wherever men or women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe. When attempts are being made to silence dissent, that is precisely the time when the voices of dissent are most needed. When people are being abducted, deported, and disappeared without any due process, we must dissent. When states are passing anti-woke laws, whitewashing history, and devaluing the lives and experiences of persons who are LGBTQ2S+, this is precisely the time when silence, especially silence from allies, is unacceptable. We must dissent. Many persons find it difficult to dissent. It's not easy. Many persons are afraid of what others will think of them. They might think badly of you for dissenting. Many are afraid of negative consequences. You might get attacked on social media. You might get attacked in real life, although in many ways, let's not forget, social media is a part of real life. But part of being a mature and responsible person is to be okay with persons not liking you or working against you when you speak out against systemic injustices. Keep in mind that MLK had a 75% disapproval rating in the last year of his life because he spoke out against the war in Vietnam. It's not possible to create positive social change without some sacrifice and without willing to experience some social rejection and even suffering, and even unjust attacks. Dissenting in times like these, even in the midst of these dangers, even in the midst of these negative consequences, even in the midst of having persons who may not like us for dissenting, dissenting in times like these is essential. But it's also critical that when we dissent, that we are being responsible with our right to dissent. Our dissenting views should be based in our best understanding of the truth. We should do all we can to avoid misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda that is pervaded with falsehoods and half-truths. We should do our fact-checking. We should make sure that what we post online or what we say is actually based in fact, is actually true. Or if we say that someone said something, we should really make sure that they actually said it. We have to make sure that what we're spreading is not propaganda that is full of falsehoods and half-truths. This is challenging in our digital age. Very challenging in our digital age when lies travel much faster and farther than the truth. There's been research on this. Lies that are full of hatred and fear travel much faster and farther than the truth. But it is essential if we are to be responsible in our dissenting speech and actions to try to live those out in the truth. Because we are not dissenting simply for the sake of dissenting or to be a contrarian. We are dissenting for the sake of a better society for all persons, and I would say also for all life. We are dissenting for the shared values that we hold so dear: interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice, all surrounding and supported by love at the center. We are dissenting out of solidarity for the most vulnerable among us, even if they don't look like us, believe like us, or experience the world like us. We are dissenting for the sake of beloved community. And beloved community must be based on truth. I'll close with some more wisdom from Elie Wiesel, who in his Nobel Peace Prize lecture said these words: "There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. The Talmud tells us that by saving a single human being, one can save the world." May we not fail to protest. May we not fail to dissent.